On today's show, the Cavs destroyed the Knicks. Donovan Mitchell was awesome. Evan Mobley was awesome. And we're going to talk about all that and so much more on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Cleveland Cavaliers win again on Friday night. They destroy the New York Knicks. I think that's the easiest way to say it. 142 to 105. The Cavs led by as many as 42 points in this game. The New York Knicks got off to a 5-0 start, and then after that, it was all Cavs. They went on a 10-2 run immediately after. They led 41 to 29 after the first quarter, and this was just sheer domination. I think that's kind of the best way that I can put this. This was one of the most, maybe the most impressive end-to-end win of the season for the Cavs. Like, I still look at that game they had against Golden State very earlier in the year as maybe the most impressive half of basketball that maybe I have ever seen. And probably the OKC game that they won in Cleveland is the other one that you can look at and say, okay, that was a super impressive win. But the way that they just dismantled New York was really impressive to me. And yeah, the Knicks were on a second night of back-to-back. They played a game in overtime on Thursday night, but the Cavs played in New York as well. On Thursday night, they didn't have to play as hard because they took care of business against the Brooklyn Nets, but the Knicks had the chance to take care of business against a bad team in the Chicago Bulls, and they didn't do that. And this game just, I think it served as a reminder. You know, I don't know if a statement win is the right way to term things with this, but I think maybe a reminder win is a better way to look at this because the Cavs are in that upper echelon in the NBA. I think that there are 3 inner circle championship contenders in the league. I think it's the Cavs, I think it's OKC, and I think it's Boston. And I think a night like this on ESPN with the world watching, with the Cavs fully healthy for just the second time all season, the Knicks getting OG Anunoby back. I know Mitchell Robinson still has not played for them. I know, obviously, Josh Hart did not play for them, but they're a team that is a good team. I don't think they're a great team. I think they're a good team. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up a little bit later on the show. But the Cavs, I think, showed that they are in a different tier than the Knicks. And I think that they're in a different tier than every team other than OKC and Boston. Like, I think it's those 3 teams. And I think that this was a reminder to the rest of the NBA that is the case, that is what the NBA looks like right now. It is those 3 teams and everybody else trying to get into that inner circle. And I do think that is one of my takeaways from this game. As far as the game itself, Donovan Mitchell was really, really good in this one. He finished with 27 points, did so on 10 of 15 shooting. He was super efficient. He was the best player on the floor, and it wasn't particularly close. Like, Jalen Brunson had a really nice start for the Knicks, and then he dealt with a little bit of foul trouble, but that was kind of all they were able to get going. Karl-Anthony Towns is a really nice player, and he had a good game, but the Cavs did a great job in this game of making sure that, the star players for New York, they're going to be able to go out and score because they're really good. Jalen Brunson's awesome. Karl-Anthony Towns is a fantastic offensive player, but they didn't allow anyone else to get going for New York. And I think that is something that when you look at a matchup like this, that matters. So Jalen Brunson had 26. Karl Towns had 23. Mikal Bridges had 14 points on 13 shots. Super inefficient. Thought the Cavs did a great job on him. Nobody else reached double figures for New York. That's how good they were defensively against the Knicks attack. And I think that is something that, as I've been talking about, and something I'm going to continue to monitor, is just how good is this team defensively since acquiring DeAndre Hunter. And this was another really impressive performance against a really good offense. Like the Knicks this year have been really good offensively. And I just think that is something that is worth keeping an eye on, that they were able to now shut down a really good offense, because the starters for neither team really played in the fourth quarter. New York scored 27 points, 27 of their 106 points in the fourth quarter, and that came against guys that are not in New York's rotation for the most part, and not in the Cavs rotation for the most part. So I don't necessarily mind that quarter of defense, but other than that, it was 29 in the first, 21 in the second, 29 in the third, and they just kind of dictated the game on both ends of the floor, because it wasn't just really good defense. It was great offense. And Donovan was great. I thought Evan Mobley was really, really good in this one too. He had 21 points on 9 of 11 shooting, had 8 rebounds. I thought he was the second best player on the floor in this one. Like, I thought it was Donovan, and I thought it was Evan. And you can look at what Jalen and Karl did as far as their offensive numbers go in terms of points scored. But I thought that the impact that Evan has on both ends of the floor, like, he's just such a dominant defensive player. And I do think that he's going to be somebody that we're going to now hear as a finalist without a doubt. And I think it's really a two-man race between him and Jaren Jackson Jr. for Defensive Player of the Year. And we can talk about that more on Monday's episode after the Cavs play the Grizzlies on Sunday night here in Cleveland. But that'll be an interesting thing to follow. But just watching him play against New York, like, it's jarring to me, because Jalen Brunson is probably going to get some MVP votes. He's not going to win the MVP award, but he'll probably end up 4th or 5th on some ballots. And he deserves that because he's an awesome player. And the Cavs at times will put Evan Mobley on Karl-Anthony Towns. And what do the Knicks want to do? They want to run a 1-5 pick and roll, and they want to get the center switched on to Jalen Brunson, because in almost every single matchup, that's a big advantage for New York. Well, Jalen Brunson gets Evan Mobley switched onto him, and he wants to get rid of the basketball. And I think that there's nothing that is a bigger honor or a bigger sign of respect than when a star guard like that does that. I think that speaks to how good Evan Mobley is on that end of the floor. He's really, I think, become such a great player this season. And I think that was really on display on Friday night. I think there were so many good things on display for the Cavs. Like, this was a game where they didn't necessarily, I think it also, I guess the best way I can put this is, I think it showcased how versatile they are offensively, because this, you score 142 points. It's easy to look at and say, wow, they probably just lit up the other team from 3. Like, they probably just were awesome beyond the arc. In the first half, the Cavs only hit 8 threes. They only took 15 threes. It's not like they won this game and they were so good offensively because they just bombed away. That's not what they were in this game. They only took 39 3-pointers in this game, and 11 of them came in the fourth quarter, which was entirely, or 37 3-pointers, sorry. They only took 37 3-pointers in this game, and 11 of them came in the fourth quarter, which was entirely garbage time. So when the starters were still playing, the Cavs only took 26 3-pointers, which is way below what they normally are. That's far below their normal 3-point rate. But it shows how good they can be on the interior, how good they can be on the outside, how many different ways they can attack teams. If the Cavs score 140 plus points, you're going to think, yeah, they probably hit like 22 or 23 threes, because they've shown time and time again they're very capable of that. But the fact that they're able to score as many points as they did without relying on that outside game, because they were able to be so good inside, I just think that's another great sign for this team. One of the other things that I do want to talk about, I want to talk about like how the Cavs and Knicks match up, and just what I think this game probably means symbolically coming up in a second. But DeAndre Hunter deserves love too, because I thought he was really good in this. And I think that he's bringing some things to the floor for the Cavs that I wasn't necessarily counting on him bringing, that I don't want to say didn't think he could do it, but I didn't think that he would do it this well. But his ability to create for himself as a 6'8" wing with a 7'2" wingspan, as the Cavs continue to say, has been a really impressive thing. He was 4 for 4 on 3-pointers. And it's not like these are all wide open catch and shoot looks. And is he getting those? Yeah. The one that he hit in the left corner on Friday night was a really tough look at the end of the shot clock, buried that. Hit a couple off the dribble 3-pointers, did that on Thursday night in Brooklyn too. Like what he's doing as far as creating his own looks, I think is a really impressive thing. And I think that is the thing. And it's not as if this Cavs offense needs to get better. Like it is great. It is championship caliber. There's no doubt about that. If the team needs to improve in areas, it's defensively. But he adds another element to their offense that just makes them that much tougher to stop. And that is the one thing, as we're now less than a week out from a showdown game against the Boston Celtics next Friday night in Boston. That is the one thing that I will look at and say, you know what, I'm very curious to see how this looks in that type of matchup. And there's only one of those matchups left. So that will be a very interesting thing to see next Friday night. But anytime the Knicks are in town, and this is obviously the first time they've been in town this year, what comes up? Well, of course, it's the playoffs from a couple of years ago. I want to talk about why that matters and just what tonight showed as far as that goes next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. So it's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, that's this one. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So you're going to want to take advantage of this. Whenever someone drops 50, and in today's NBA climate, happens, maybe not all the time, but it's not a crazy thing to see a guy drop 50 points in a game. We see it from time to time. I don't think that we've seen one this week. There wasn't anybody that, at least as I record this, that has scored 50 points tonight, but it's going to happen soon. And when it does happen, you're going to want to take advantage of it. What you need to do is sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And also, make sure you check out the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. So 2 years ago, as we all know, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks squared off in a postseason series. And that postseason series ended with the Knicks winning 4 out of the 5 games that were played. And of course, these teams look different than they did then. Julius Randle's not on the Knicks. The Cavs are not relying on guys like Lamar Stevens and Jetty Osman to play key roles. The Cavs have a new coach, JB Bickerstaff's in Detroit. Kenny Atkinson's the head coach now. Like, these teams have changed. I would argue that both teams are significantly better. I don't think there's any conversation to be had about the Cavs being a better team. I think that I don't think there's a person in the world that would argue that. And I think the Knicks are a much better team now than they were at that point. But a lot of the conversation following that series was about Jarrett Allen's comments about the lights being too bright and the Cavs not being tough enough and being out physical, and the fact that New York basically stole their lunch money and the Cavs couldn't do anything about it. And I think all of that stuff was fair at the time. And what the New York Knicks could do, aside from the physicality, aside from out-rebounding the Cavs, aside from keeping down what was not a great Cavs offense, aside from all that, what the Knicks could do, what they had the ability to do back then, was they could reach a level of play that the Cavs just didn't have in the tank. The Cavs could not, at that point, get to the same level of play that the New York Knicks were capable of getting to. So we fast forward to now, and as I mentioned, the Knicks today are much better than that Knicks team in the postseason. The Cavs today are light years better than that team was. And in watching the game on Friday night, sitting there, it's just, you're thinking, these two teams have changed so much since that postseason series, because now, and I understand that this is a regular season game at the end of February. It's not the be all end all. It's not that big of a deal. But this game showed that the Cavs can get to a level that the New York Knicks are not capable of getting to. And I'm not going to make this about the Knicks. I'm not going to make this about some rivalry that I don't necessarily think exists, because I also think it's very unlikely that these two teams see each other in the postseason, because I do not believe that this Knicks team is capable of beating the Boston Celtics, who they will most likely run into in the second round of the playoffs and lose. And that's where their season will end. But the Cavs have grown so much. And I do think that anytime the Knicks are in town, it's a fair measuring stick game. Not because you're measuring yourself against a great team. The Knicks are a really good team. They're not a great team. But I think the Cavs are in these games, and I do think that you saw it with how emotional Donovan Mitchell was. I think it was pretty evident that he wanted this one. I think it was pretty evident that the team as a whole wanted this one. And I don't know that they necessarily want to talk about that series, and it was brought up, and I do want to talk about Donovan Mitchell's comments on it too. But I think that anytime they play the Knicks, it is an opportunity for the Cavs to say, look, see how far we've grown since the spring of 2023 when that postseason series ended. And they've grown a ton, because now they're the team that is capable of getting to a level that the opponents aren't. And there are a few teams capable of getting to that level. OKC obviously is, Boston obviously is. I think you could probably sell me on the Denver Nuggets being able to get to that level because they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. But the Cavs are like, they are in rarefied air. And we haven't necessarily seen them play at this level all the time. And part of that's because of health. And part of that's because now they are a different team than they were earlier in the year with DeAndre Hunter. But they showed that on Friday. And I think it serves as a reminder of just how teams can grow and get better when you give them time. And Donovan Mitchell was asked about that postseason series a couple years back. And he said, I don't want to say that he thinks about it all the time or that they want to move past it, because he says it's something that he appreciates. He looks at it like that. He said, I think for myself, for us as a group, you needed that. You don't see us get to this point. You don't see the hunger in Darius Garland. I mean, you see it, but you don't see the chip on his shoulder. Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, myself, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, all the guys Donovan Mitchell is talking about that were part of that team. Obviously, not everybody from that team is still here. I mentioned a few guys that aren't, that the Cavs were relying on, that they are relying on better players in those roles now. And that is a big deal. But then he continued, if we don't, quite frankly, get embarrassed by New York, I think those experiences are humbling. Those experiences are needed. I don't think we look at it as like, man, we needed to kick their behinds because they beat us. I think for us, it's more like, at least I look at it as, I'm appreciative. It sucks to lose. And in the moment, I probably wouldn't say, I'm like, oh, I'm appreciative we lost. But looking back at it, this is pretty much, obviously not pretty much, but close to the same core guys that were there and experienced that. I don't want to call them blowouts, but rough performances. And I just think that what Donovan said there speaks volumes, because the Cavs are not measuring themselves against the current New York Knicks. They are measuring themselves against the Boston Celtics and the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they're measuring themselves too against the past version of themselves. And they're far and away better. But I do still think it means something to them to be on the stage, to be against this team, to be on national television, and go out and prove it in the way they did. Because it wasn't as if, oh, they beat the Knicks. It was, they made the Knicks look like they didn't belong on the same floor as the Cavs. And I think that's the big deal in this, is that they weren't just better. They outclassed New York. They looked like a team that is capable and, I don't want to say should win the finals, but is more than capable of doing it. And that's what a championship team looks like. The Cavs looked like a championship team, no questions asked on Friday night. And you couldn't say the same for New York. And I don't think New York is a championship team. And that's not fair to expect them to look like that. But this was, I think, a big deal for the Cavs. I don't think it was a statement win. I think it was a reminder win. I also think it was a measuring stick win. But they're not measuring themselves against the Knicks. They're measuring themselves against what they were, how far they've grown. And, I still think that there's room for them to grow. I don't think that this is the best that we're going to see from the Cavs, but I think it's a glimpse into this team is going to, if they're firing on all cylinders, if they stay healthy, this team is going to be really, really great. I did say there, if they stay healthy. There were a couple of injury scares. I want to talk about that. Plus, this was the first game the Cavs have had all year with a second game, that the Cavs have had all year with a full rotation available, and the first one since they traded for DeAndre Hunter. So I want to talk about that rotation and, of course, the health updates next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action, well, it is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stand on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. Yeah, maybe you think someone's going to go off in the fourth quarter. Maybe you think that, I don't know, the Cavs are going to hang on by 35 plus points. Like maybe you think they're going to cover that giant spread because they have a 42-point lead against a team like the New York Knicks. You can do that in game. You can keep it exciting then. What you can also do is you can bet on Evan Mobley to win Defensive Player of the Year. Right now on FanDuel, with Victor Wembanyama being ruled out for the remainder of the season, Evan Mobley is the second best odds to win Defensive Player of the Year at plus 130. Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies, he's plus 125. He's the favorite, but it's a very, very tight race. So that is, without question, something to keep an eye on. DeAndre Hunter, also second for sixth man of the year. I'm curious if he's going to stay in that six-man role. That'll be another thing to keep an eye on as the season does continue on. But right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. $150 in bonus bets. Just got to win that first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to join today. Again, FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. So, Darius Garland took a couple of shots to the face because, of course, he did. Darius Garland gets hit in the face more than any player in the NBA. I don't have a stat to back that up. There's not a stat to back that up, but if you watch, you know. So, he took one shot in the face, I believe, from Jalen Brunson. Stayed in the game, and then I don't know if it was the very next possession or two possessions later, he was fouled by Karl-Anthony Towns, and he hit his head on the floor pretty hard. Stayed in the game, split the free throws. Then he came out of the game, and he didn't go back to the Cavs bench. Donovan Mitchell subbed in for him, and instead of going back to the Cavs bench, he just went to the scorer's table and checked back in as the next dead ball. And that is not something I can ever remember seeing happen in a game. Like when a guy is shaken up or injured and checks out, like he normally goes to the bench and goes and sees the trainer. That didn't happen. Garland ended up staying in the game after briefly checking out. He finished playing just under 25 minutes, which, in a blowout of this magnitude, he would have played his normal minutes amount had the game been close. Like he was on track to do so. He would have played right around 30 minutes. And we'll see if there are any lingering issues. I will say I do not believe I saw him in the locker room after the game. I do not believe he spoke with the media. If he did not. I did not talk to him. So that is certainly something to keep an eye on. The other guy, Jarrett Allen, he left the game with a right hand injury, had x-rays. X-rays came back as negative. Kenny Atkinson said that he does anticipate that Allen will get an MRI. We don't know what that's going to say. And it's almost like, of course, this happens. The Cavs are fully healthy for the first time all season, second time all season, first time since the DeAndre Hunter trade. So maybe that won't last. It would be a real bummer if that is the case, but that is the latest as far as that goes. With the Cavs having a full rotation, I did think it was interesting to see who played, how much. We obviously can't read a ton into the minutes just because it was a blowout, because there was 12 minutes of garbage time in this one. But the regular rotation, which I will look at as the first half of this game, not that it wasn't a blowout by the time that halftime arrived, but it's not as if Kenny went deep into the bench in the first half. So 10 guys played in the first half, the starting five, which was Donovan, Evan, Darius, Jarrett, and Max. DeAndre Hunter played 11 minutes off the bench. Ty Jerome played 9 minutes off the bench. Sam Merrill played just under 9 minutes off the bench. Isaac Okoro played 6.5 minutes, and Dean Wade, in his first action back, he played 6 minutes off the bench in the first half. All these numbers, first half numbers, but that's who played when the game was still within, was not yet decided, even though it kind of was. But that he played 10 guys, and I do think that's what we're going to see moving forward. When the postseason arrives, I would be surprised if he plays 10 guys. I'm just not sure that that's something that is viable, maybe in the first round, but deep into the postseason, I don't know. But this will be something to keep an eye on. If the Cavs stay fully healthy, how many guys they play on a regular basis will be something to keep an eye on. Now, next for the Cavs, they're off on Saturday. They're back in action on Sunday night at home against the Memphis Grizzlies, their first matchup of the season with Memphis. And of course, I will be back right here talking about that game and so much more with you on Locked on Cavs. So thank you for making this your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. I'll be back on Monday.